It's been 5 years since The Last of Us Part 2 rocked the gaming world, and whether you loved it or hated it, there's one question that refuses to go away. Will there be a Part 3? From secret story drafts to canceled multiplayer spin-offs, and from the booming success of the TV series to whispers of a brand new IP, Naughty Dog has been busy, but the clues are stacking up. So, is The Last of Us Part 3 actually happening? Or are we just chasing shadows? Let's break it all down. Since 2020, fans of The Last of Us have been holding their breath. It's now been half a decade with no official confirmation of a third game. That's unusual for a franchise this big, especially one that has sold millions of copies and practically defines the PlayStation brand. Let's be real, it's hard to imagine that Sony would let this franchise fade away. Even more surprising, there hasn't been a single official teaser or logo drop. No posters, no press releases, just a trail of scattered comments from Neil Druckmann and a whole lot of speculation. So why the silence? Let's rewind for a moment. When The Last of Us Part 2 dropped in 2020, it divided the gaming community. Some praised the bold storytelling and evolved gameplay mechanics. Others were furious, especially over Joel's controversial fate. But regardless of how you felt, here's the fact. It was a monster hit. The PS4 version alone sold over 10 million copies. It won Game of the Year. It ignited debates that spilled out of gaming and into podcasts, think pieces, and yes, even academic discussions. And just recently, both Part 1 and Part 2 got remastered for PS5 and PC. Critics may have called them unnecessary, but they sold really well anyway. That shows us something. There's still demand. The clearest breadcrumbs about Part 3 come from Neil Druckmann himself. In the 2023 behind-the-scenes documentary about the making of the series and games, he said, "There are still stories left to tell." That quote exploded online. Some fans saw it as a coded confirmation. "It's coming," they said. But in reality, it was just a passing comment, far from an official announcement. Later, Druckmann walked it back a little. He clarified, "We'll only make the third game if we find a good story to tell." So, they're not forcing a sequel just because of fan demand or financial pressure. And honestly, that's both reassuring and frustrating. Before we continue, if you want to try the latest games without breaking the bank, Gamefly lets you rent physical copies and have them delivered right to your door. Click the link in the description to learn more and start your free trial. Whether you're into post-apocalyptic stories, sci-fi adventures, or just want to revisit PlayStation classics, Gamefly has something for every nerd. Back in 2021, Druckmann admitted in an interview that he and co-writer Hallie Gross had already written a rough outline for The Last of Us Part 3, a full draft script. Whether it's still being used or has been shelved is unknown. But here's the takeaway. The desire to continue the story is real. It's not just fan fiction. There's an actual, tangible framework for what comes next. So what's holding them back? Since 2020, Naughty Dog's roadmap has taken a few detours. First, there was the Part 1 remake in 2022, then a Part 2 remaster. Solid games, sure, but many fans called them cash grabs, especially with no new content announced alongside them. Then came the faction's multiplayer project. It was hyped as Naughty Dog's big entry into the live service space. They spent nearly 4 years on it. And then, it got canceled. The studio pulled the plug, saying they'd rather stick to what they do best, single-player storytelling. But maybe the biggest distraction of all has been the HBO TV series. Druckmann isn't just a consultant. He directed an episode and is deeply involved in production. And with Season 2 underway and Season 3 already greenlit, his time is split. There's only so much one man can do. And when half your brain is writing television scripts, it's hard to fully focus on another massive video game production. Here's another big curveball. Naughty Dog's next game isn't The Last of Us Part 3. It's a brand new IP currently nicknamed the Intergalactic Prophecy, a sci-fi action game that's expected to release around 2027 or 2028. It's a bold move, especially for a studio so closely tied to its existing franchises. But even here, fans are speculating. With around 500 employees at Naughty Dog and about 250 reportedly assigned to Intergalactic, it's not crazy to think the other half might be quietly working on Part 3. If TLOU 3 is already in pre-production, or even early development, it's entirely possible it's running in parallel with the new IP. Now let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room, the TV show. Season 1 was a hit. Season 2 is already generating buzz, and it's confirmed that the story of The Last of Us Part 2 will be stretched across 2 seasons. That gives Naughty Dog even more time before the show catches up to the current game timeline. They don't need to rush Part 3, but they do need to deliver, because when Season 3 drops, fans are going to start asking, what's next? And Sony isn't going to just sit on a franchise this profitable. Between the merchandising, the show, and the remasters, The Last of Us is still a gold mine. Eventually, the pressure to make Part 3 will become impossible to ignore. So where does that leave us? There's no official announcement, no trailer, no logo, but we do have a written story outline. Studio resources likely split between 2 projects, a show that needs more story down the line, and a studio that has never completely shut the door. All signs point to The Last of Us Part 3 being a matter of when, not if. Our best guess? Late 2028 or early 2029, depending on how quickly Intergalactic wraps up, and how heavily Druckmann remains involved with HBO. But whenever it comes, let's just hope it's closer to a shadow drop reveal, not another 10-year wait like we had with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So yeah, The Last of Us Part 3 isn't a myth. It's just in hibernation. And with a powerful narrative draft waiting in the wings, a blockbuster show building momentum, and Naughty Dog slowly clearing the deck of distractions, all that's left is the green light. When that happens, expect the internet to explode. But there's another layer to this, something deeper than sales numbers or sequel speculation. For a lot of fans, this series isn't just about gameplay or graphics. It's about closure. Ellie's journey in Part 2 ended in silence. No resolution with Dina, no clear direction, just an empty farmhouse and a broken guitar. Abby's arc, while more complete, still left room for growth. And with the world of The Last of Us being so morally complex, the story never felt like it wrapped up cleanly. It lingers, and that lingering feeling is why fans are still so invested. A third game could offer something rare in gaming, a truly mature trilogy. Not just in tone, but in theme. A final installment that doesn't aim to please everyone, but dares to reflect on legacy, grief, and forgiveness, just like its predecessors. Of course, there's also a risk. A weak third entry could fracture the fanbase even further. But knowing Naughty Dog's track record, and the creative ambition we've seen from Druckmann in both games and the TV series, there's reason to be optimistic. This isn't about making another big-budget sequel just because the IP is hot. It's about finishing a story that's already left a mark on an entire generation of gamers. If done right, The Last of Us Part 3 could go down as one of the most impactful finales in gaming history. And if it never comes, then Part 2 becomes the definitive end, an uncomfortable, unresolved, but still powerful closing note in one of gaming's boldest sagas. Either way, the legacy of The Last of Us is already secure. What comes next is just a matter of time and trust. Are you hyped for The Last of Us Part 3? Do you think they should even make it? Or should the story end with Ellie and Abby? Drop your thoughts in the comments and give us a high five down there. Don't forget to subscribe for more gaming deep dives, anime coverage, and all things nerdy. And hey, Gamefly has The Last of Us games available if you want to replay them without spending full price. Check the link in the description and start your free trial today. Thanks for watching, Nerd Fam. You're not just viewers, you're part of the team.